There is an underlying order in the apparent chaos of existence, a set of eternal principles that operate with the precision of the laws of physics, not only in the movement of galaxies, but in the depths of our own minds. These principles don't demand belief, only understanding. They don't promise miracles, but they reveal the mechanics that produce them. For millennia, this knowledge was jealously guarded, passed down from mouth to ear among thinkers and philosophers. It was distilled into a text of legendary wisdom, the Kybalion. It is not a book of religious dogmas, but an operations manual for the universe, a guide to understanding the laws that govern reality. This audiobook is a deep study of those 7 universal principles. Not so that you will blindly accept them, but so that you can observe them in action, verify them in your own life, and use them as tools. Tools to go from being a passive effect of circumstances to becoming the conscious cause of your own experience. You will learn why your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. You will understand the vibratory nature of your thoughts and emotions. And you will discover that you are not at the mercy of chance, but are an active participant in an orderly and predictable universe. The knowledge you are about to receive isn't magic, it's mechanics. It's the physics of consciousness. And once you understand the mechanics, you become the engineer. The scroll is about to be unrolled. Chapter 1. The first principle, the mind of the all. The first Hermetic principle is expressed in 3 words of monumental simplicity, yet of a depth that has challenged the human mind for millennia. The all is mind. The corollary that derives from this truth is equally radical. The universe is mental. Let's pause here, because everything that follows in your journey of understanding will depend on your ability to contemplate this first law, not as a metaphor, but as a literal description of reality. Dismantling material reality since birth, we have been conditioned to believe in a materialistic reality. Our 5 senses inform us of a world of solid objects, separated by empty space. We learn that the universe is a vast machine of matter and energy, governed by impersonal physical laws. In this paradigm, consciousness, the mind, is seen as an epiphenomenon, a fortunate accident, a ghost that has emerged from the complex machinery of the brain. We believe that matter creates the mind. The principle of mentalism inverts this equation. It declares with absolute certainty that the mind creates matter. The fundamental substance of the universe is not matter. It is not even energy. The primordial substance of everything that exists is consciousness, a living, infinite, and universal mind. The science of the 20th century, in its search for the fundamental particle, unintentionally reached the threshold of this same truth. By delving into the atom, it did not find small solid spheres as expected. It found a vibrant void. It discovered that subatomic particles are not things, but events, waves of probability that only manifest as defined particles when they are observed. The basis of the physical world is not physical. It is informational. It is potential. Hermetic philosophy takes this discovery and takes the final step. It posits that this field of potentiality is not an impersonal field. It is a living mind, the nature of the all. To understand the universe, we must first contemplate the nature of its source, which the Kybalion refers to as the all. The all is all that is by definition. The all must contain everything that exists. There can be nothing outside of it, because if there were something outside, it would no longer be the all. This means that there is nothing in the universe that is not part of this single source. The all is infinite. If it is everything that is, it cannot have limits in space, time, or power. It is eternal and unlimited. The all is immutable. Being everything, there is nothing it can change into, nothing that can be added to or subtracted from it. And here we come to the great question of the philosophers. If the all is all of this, how could it create the universe? It cannot create it from itself, because that would imply dividing itself and ceasing to be one. And it cannot create it from something external, because there is nothing external to it. The only possible answer, the one that constitutes the heart of the first principle, is that the all created the universe in the only way an infinite mind can create, mentally. The universe is a mental creation of the all. It is a sustained thought. We live, move, and have our being within the mind of the all, in the same way that the characters in a dream live, move, and have their being within the mind of the dreamer. The universe, with all its galaxies, its laws of physics, and its apparent solidity is not a machine. It is a mental work of art, a symphony of thought, your place in the universal mind. This understanding has a direct and transformative implication for you. If the entire universe is a projection of the universal mind, then you, being a part of that universe, are also a part of that mind. Your individual mind is not a separate, isolated entity. It is a center of consciousness within the great mind. You are an idea in the mind of God, who has been given the divine gift of thinking and creating for herself. You are a fragment of the dreamer, who has awakened within the dream, and because of the law of correspondence, as it is above, so it is below. Your mind operates under the same principles as the universal mind. If the all creates mentally, you also create mentally. This is the source of your power. Your thoughts are not private ephemeral events that occur inside your skull. They are creative acts. They are the causes that, when emitted into the mental field of the universe, must, by law, produce a corresponding effect. Your personal world is a microcosm that reflects your mental state. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are the mental cause of circumstances. To apply this law, you must first understand the machinery of your own mind, the dynamic between your conscious and subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is the architect. It is the thinker, the reasoner. It is the seat of your free will, your capacity to choose to accept or reject an idea. Its greatest power is to create the blueprint, the mental image of what you desire. Your subconscious mind is the master builder. It is the emotional, irrational mind in the sense that it does not argue. It is completely impersonal and obedient. Its only function is to take the blueprints that your conscious mind hands it with conviction and use the infinite power of the universal mind to build them in the physical world. The problem is that, for most of our lives, the architect has been asleep. We have allowed our conscious mind to be filled with the blueprints created by others, the beliefs of our parents, the suggestions of the media, the fears of society. And our subconscious, the faithful builder, upon receiving these second-hand blueprints, has diligently built them, creating a life that is not our own, but a reflection of our programming. The law of mentalism gives you back the power. It reminds you that you are the architect. And if you are the architect, you are the first cause of your own experience. Thoughts are things, the energy of creation. A thought is not just an abstract idea. It is a thing. It is an energy structure. It is a vibration. Every thought you hold generates a specific frequency. Thoughts of fear, scarcity, resentment vibrate at a low contractive frequency. Thoughts of love, gratitude, confidence, abundance vibrate at a high, expansive frequency. Your reality is a resonance field. By law, it must reflect your dominant vibration. The universe does not listen to your superficial words. It listens to the music of your habitual thoughts. Imagine two people, both with the conscious desire to start a successful business. Person A operates from a mental plane of confidence and value. Her dominant thoughts are, I have a unique gift to offer. The service I provide enriches the lives of others. I always find creative solutions to any challenge. Success is the natural result of my contribution. This thought pattern is a powerful cause. It is a detailed blueprint for building a prosperous business. Her vibration of confidence attracts the right partners, ideal clients, and unexpected opportunities. Person B, on the other hand, operates from a mental plane of fear and doubt. Her dominant thoughts are, it's too risky. What if I fail? The market is saturated. I'm not sure I'm good enough. This thought pattern is also a cause, but it is a blueprint for building a failure. Her vibration of fear repels opportunities. Her constant mental rehearsal of failure programs her subconscious to, in effect, make mistakes and procrastinate. Both people live in the same objective universe, but they experience radically different realities, not because of external circumstances, but because of the mental cause they chose to sow in their own inner being. The Conscious Creators Workshop, Integrated Practices. The practical philosopher does not try to change anything on the outside at first. He simply becomes an observer of his own mental universe. He knows that the thoughts he allows to live in his mind are the blueprints of the house he is building. The mental audit. The first practice is the audit. For the next 3 days, your task is to become a silent observer of your own mental workshop. Carry a notebook. Every time you catch yourself immersed in a recurring thought loop, write it down. Do not try to change or judge it. Simply be the scientist who observes the data. What are the 3 to 5 most common thoughts or stories you tell yourself throughout the day? About money, about your health, about your relationships. At the end of the 3 days, look at your list. This is the master blueprint that your subconscious has been using to build your life until today. This awareness is the first and most brutal step toward freedom, the creation of a thought form. Then you begin the true work of the creator. You choose deliberately a thought, a state of being. For example, calm. You sit in silence for 2 minutes. First, you introduce the thought, the word calm. Then you associate an image, a serene lake. And finally, you invoke the feeling. You feel your shoulders relax, how a peace settles in your chest. You have performed your first act of deliberate mental creation. The first and greatest of the principles has been revealed to you. You are not a character in a story written by someone else. You are the consciousness that imagines and projects the story. Every thought is a cause. Every condition is an effect. This is the law of the mind of the all. Chapter 2. The Reflected Principle. As within, so without. To understand this, we must explore the principle that acts as the great connector, the bridge between the worlds. The law that teaches us to read the universe as a book, open upon ourselves. We must decipher the second principle, the principle of correspondence, encapsulated in the immortal maxim. As it is above, so it is below. As it is within, so it is without. This law states that an analogy, a correspondence, a harmony, exists between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of existence. What is true in the macrocosm of the galaxies is also true in the microcosm of the atom, and it is true in the universe of your own life. But for our practical purpose, the most powerful implication is the second part of the axiom. As it is within, so it is without. This means that your external reality, your health, your wealth, your relationships, the circumstances you encounter, is not a solid, objective and independent entity. It is a mirror, a living mirror, impeccable and of a brutal honesty, that reflects without filters or judgment your dominant state of consciousness. The world is not doing anything to you. The world is showing you. It is showing you with relentless precision the content of your own mind. Your life is not something that happens to you. It is a feedback loop. It is the echo of the song you are singing in the silence of your soul. This understanding is the end of the victim game. It forces you to withdraw your accusing finger from the world, from the economy, from the government, from your partner, from your parents, and to gently turn it toward yourself. Not in an act of guilt, but in an act of power. Because if your outer world is a reflection of your inner world, then to change the reflection, you don't have to fight the mirror. You just have to change the face that is reflected in it. The power to change your world resides wholly and exclusively in your power to change yourself. The 3 planes of the reflection. To understand how this mirror works in practice, we must analyze it on the 3 great planes of human experience: the mental, the emotional, and the physical. The mental plane, the reflection of your beliefs in your circumstances. Your inner world, on a mental level, is composed of your beliefs and your dominant thought patterns. This is the script that runs in the projector of your mind. The external world reflects this script with a perfect fidelity, manifesting as the recurring themes and situations in your life. Think of the dramas that seem to repeat in your existence, often with different characters, but with the same script. Perhaps you have the abandonment pattern. You change partners, but each one in one way or another ends up abandoning you. Perhaps you have the non-recognition pattern. You change jobs, but in each one you feel invisible, undervalued, overlooked for promotions. Perhaps you have the almost success pattern. You get right to the edge of a great achievement, and at the last minute something always goes wrong and ruins everything. These are not destinies. They are reflections. They are the external manifestation of a root belief, of a subconscious program. The person with the abandonment pattern probably holds the belief, I am not worthy of unconditional love. The person with the non-recognition pattern believes deep down that my work is not good enough. And the person with the almost success pattern probably harbors a deep fear of success and visibility. The practical philosopher, when faced with one of these recurring patterns, does not ask with frustration, why is this happening to me again? He asks with a deep curiosity, Interesting. What belief within me is still so powerful as to project this same film over and over again? The external pattern is not the prison. The prison is the internal belief, and the pattern is simply the jailer who shows you, with brutal kindness, where the lock is. The emotional plane, the reflection of your vibration in your relationships. Your habitual emotional state, your vibration, is perhaps the most powerful aspect of your inner world. The universe is a field of resonance. It attracts what vibrates at the same frequency. The reflection of your emotional state manifests in the quality of your relationships and the atmosphere of your environment. If you live in a state of unexpressed anger or resentment, you will attract people and situations into your life that provoke you, that push that same button of anger. The world will constantly give you a reason to be angry, because anger is the frequency you are emitting. If you live in a state of constant anxiety and fear, you will perceive the world as a dangerous place. The mirror of life will show you alarming news, untrustworthy people, and reasons to worry at every corner. On the contrary, if you deliberately cultivate a state of inner peace, you will begin to notice a miraculous change. The people around you will seem calmer. The situations that used to stress you out will lose their power over you. It's not that the world has changed. It's that you have changed the frequency of your receiver, and now you tune into harmony instead of chaos. The physical plane, the reflection of your consciousness in your body. Finally, the mirror of correspondence manifests on the densest plane, the physical. Your health is the most intimate mirror of your inner state. An inner state of conflict, of chronic stress or of unresolved resentment, as we have explored, translates into a body chemistry of disharmony. And this chemistry, sustained over time, is reflected in the body as muscle tension, inflammation, a weakened immune system, and eventually as illness. A physical symptom is not an enemy. It is the echo of an emotional cry that has not been heard. The first practice, the art of reading the reflection. The first step to changing your reality is to stop fighting it and start understanding it. The practical philosopher does not see the world as an adversary, but as his most valuable textbook, as his most honest guru. His practice is that of honest interpretation. You take your journal, and instead of complaining about an external circumstance that causes you suffering, you describe it with the greatest possible objectivity. The circumstance is this: my boss does not value my work. The circumstance is this: I constantly attract emotionally unavailable partners. And then you ask yourself the sacred question of correspondence. The question that pulls you out of the victim role and returns your power to you. You ask, if this external event is a perfect mirror, what belief or emotional state within me is it reflecting? If my boss doesn't value my work, where do I not value myself? Do I hold the belief that my worth depends on external approval? If I attract unavailable partners, where am I unavailable to myself? Is there a part of me that is afraid of true intimacy, and therefore projects that unavailability onto others? This self-inquiry, performed with radical honesty, is the act of reading the reflection. It is the diagnosis. And as any good doctor knows, an accurate diagnosis is half the cure. The second practice, the art of changing the image. The philosopher knows that it is useless to try to clean a smudge on the mirror. It is an act of frustration and madness. His only practice is to change his own face. To change the reflection, he works on the source. To change the reflection of your circumstances, the mental plane, the philosopher rewrites the script. He uses his disciplined imagination, as we will explore in later chapters, to build within himself the mental equivalent of the reality he chooses. He knows that if he holds this new image with persistence, the mirror will have no choice but to, over time, reflect it. To change the reflection of your relationships, the emotional plane, the philosopher tunes his instrument. Instead of seeking love outside, he cultivates it within. He deliberately practices the states of self-love, self-acceptance, and wholeness. He knows that the world can only bring him people who are a resonance of his own inner music. He becomes the person he wants to attract. The principle of correspondence has been revealed to you. The universe is no longer an alien, capricious place. It is your most honest dialogue partner, your most faithful mirror. You are no longer a victim of the reflection. You are the conscious being who, by transforming his own face, changes the world. Chapter 3. The Pulsing Principle, the Dance of Creation. The ancient axiom expresses it with a resounding simplicity. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. This is not a poetic metaphor. It is a literal description of reality. Modern science, on its journey to the heart of matter, has confirmed this mystical truth. It has discovered that at the deepest level, solid objects do not exist. The chair you sit in, the table in front of you, your own body, everything you perceive as solid and stable is, in reality, a vast ocean of energy. It is a whirlwind of atoms, which are in turn vortices of subatomic particles that are not things, but vibrations, waves of probability dancing in a field of infinite potentiality. Solidity is an illusion of our senses, which are not sharp enough to perceive this cosmic dance. The universe is not a collection of static objects. It is a symphony of frequencies. And here lies the secret. You, as a center of consciousness, are an instrument of astonishing complexity in this orchestra. Your state of being, the sum of your beliefs, thoughts, and, above all, your dominant emotions, emits a specific frequency to the universe, a unique musical note. And by the law of resonance, the universe has no choice but to bring into your experience people, circumstances, and events that vibrate in harmony with that note you are emitting. You don't attract what you want with your thoughts. You attract what you are with your vibration. This is the key that solves the great mystery of why positive thinking often doesn't work. You can spend all day repeating the lyrics of a song of abundance, but if in your body, in your heart, the music that is playing is the vibration of fear and scarcity, that is the true signal you are sending. You are trying to sing an opera note, while your entire inner orchestra plays a funeral march. And the universe, which is deaf to your words but exquisitely sensitive to your music, will respond to the dominant vibration. You are a vibratory instrument to become a conscious creator. You must understand how you compose and emit your personal frequency. You are an instrument, and your music is created on 3 levels. Thoughts as frequencies. Every thought you have is not a silent event. It is a vibration. A thought of judgment or criticism is a dissonant and sharp note. A thought of gratitude or appreciation is a harmonious and warm note. Your habitual inner dialogue is the main melody you are composing every instant. If the melody is one of worry and fear, you are writing a low-frequency score. If the melody is one of confidence and possibility, you are writing a high-frequency one. Emotions as an amplifier. If thoughts are the notes on the score, emotions are the volume and intensity with which they are played. They are the music itself. The heart is the great amplifier of your being. Its electromagnetic field takes the melody of your thoughts and turns it into a powerful emission that radiates into the universe. It is your emotional state that defines your true vibrational signature. The frequency of fear and anxiety is chaotic, fast, irregular, and incoherent. It's like a radio station broadcasting pure static. When you emit this frequency, by the law of resonance, you can only attract into your life events, people, and circumstances that vibrate in that same band of chaos and danger. The frequency of anger and resentment is heavy, dense, and of low vibration. It's like a deep, distorted note that makes the foundations tremble. By emitting it, you attract conflicts, power struggles, and situations that validate your bitterness. The frequency of love and gratitude is coherent, smooth, harmonious, and expansive. It's like a perfect chord that resonates with crystalline clarity. When you emit this frequency, you become a magnet for grace, synchronicity, unexpected help, and loving relationships. The universe does not respond to the lyrics of your song, your superficial thoughts. It responds to the music of your heart, your dominant emotional vibration. The law of attraction as resonance. With this understanding, the famous law of attraction ceases to be a vague concept and reveals itself as a principle of physics. Resonance. Imagine 2 identical tuning forks. If you strike the first one and make it vibrate, and you bring the second one close, the latter, without being touched, will begin to vibrate at the same frequency. It will resonate with the first. It does not respond to tuning forks of a different note. It only responds to the vibration that is identical to its own. You are the first tuning fork. The field of reality, with all its infinite possibilities, is the second. When you hold a clear and coherent frequency in your being, the frequency of health, love, and abundance, reality has no choice but to begin to vibrate at that same frequency, organizing the particles of existence to correspond with your inner music. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. The first practice, the vibrational audit. The composer's first act is not to play a new note, but to listen to the one that is already playing. The practice is that of somatic self-observation. Several times a day you pause, you close your eyes, and you bring your attention to your body. And you ask yourself the musician's question, what is my frequency right now? Am I in a state of expansion or contraction? You know that contraction, tightness in the chest and not in the stomach, hunched shoulders, is the physical signature of low-frequency vibrations, fear, anger, scarcity. It is dissonance. You know that expansion, openness in the heart, a feeling of lightness, deep breathing, is the signature of high-frequency vibrations, love, gratitude, confidence. It is harmony. This simple check-in, this bodily tuning, is your guidance system. You don't judge the note, you simply recognize it. The second practice, the art of transmutation. Once you have recognized a dissonant note, you don't fight it. You know that resisting a note is like trying to stop a vibration with your hands. It is only amplified. Instead, you practice the art of vibrational transmutation. The fastest way to change your vibration is not by fighting the negative emotion, but by deliberately introducing a positive emotion of a higher frequency. And the most potent note, the master chord that has the power to harmonize any dissonance, is gratitude. When you feel the contraction of fear, you do not focus on the fear. Instead, you deliberately look for something you can feel genuine gratitude for, no matter how small. It can be gratitude for your breath, for the sun, for a happy memory. You immerse yourself in the feeling of that gratitude, and you feel how the expansive warmth of that high frequency begins to dissolve from within. The contractive cold of fear. You have not fought the darkness. You have turned on a light. The third practice, harmonic immersion. Finally, the philosopher knows that for a new frequency to become his natural state, he must bathe in it. He becomes a curator of his own vibrational environment. His practice is that of energetic hygiene. He deliberately chooses the music he listens to, the conversations he participates in, the places he frequents, and the people he spends his time with, based on a simple question: does this elevate my frequency or lower it? He immerses himself in environments and relationships that resonate with the new symphony he has chosen to compose. He knows that his environment is a set of tuning forks that can help him maintain the note or can completely detune him. The pulsing principle has been revealed to you. The universe is not a silent place. It is a symphony of vibrations, and you are one of its most potent composers. Your feelings are not reactions, they are vibrational decrees. You are no longer a victim of your own music. You are its director. You have the power to change the note, to tune your instrument, and to compose the symphony of a new reality. Chapter 4. The Dual Principle. The Two Faces of Truth. The ancient axiom expresses it with extraordinary density and beauty. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. Let's unpack this powerful revelation, because it is the basis of all mental and emotional transmutation. The principle tells us that the opposites we perceive in the world, hot and cold, light and dark, up and down, good and evil, are not in reality fundamentally different things. They are simply two extremes of the same thing, two poles of a single spectrum. To understand this, let's use the metaphor of a thermometer. The thermometer measures a single thing, temperature. Cold and hot are not two distinct phenomena. They are simply different degrees of the same thing. Cold is a low degree of thermal vibration. Heat is a high degree. You cannot eliminate the cold. You can only transform it into heat by adding vibration, by adding energy. The law of polarity reveals to us that all the realities of our life operate under this same law. Failure and success, fear and courage, scarcity and abundance, even hate and love are not irreconcilable opposites. They are two poles of the same spectrum. This means that you are not condemned to live at the negative pole of any experience. You are a mental alchemist, and your consciousness is the flame that has the power to add heat, to raise the vibration, to move along the spectrum from the pole you do not desire to the one you choose. The great spectrums of life. Let's see how this principle applies to the great polarities of the human experience in the spectrum of courage. Transmuting fear. Fear and courage seem like irreconcilable opposites. You are either brave or you are afraid, but this is an illusion. Fear and courage are not two different things. They are two poles of the same spectrum. Your relationship with a perception of threat. Fear is the lower end of the scale. It is the degree where your perception of the threat is much greater than your perception of your own resources to handle it. It is a vibration of contraction, of powerlessness. Courage is the upper end of the scale. It is not the absence of the perception of threat. True courage is not having fear. It is feeling the fear, but consciously choosing to focus on your resources, on your strength, on your ability to handle the situation. It is a vibration of expansion and power. The transmutation of fear into courage is not achieved by fighting fear. That would be like trying to fight the cold. It only generates more tension. Transmutation is achieved by adding heat, deliberately withdrawing your attention from the catastrophic images of failure, the pole of fear, and focusing it on the empowering images of success and resilience, the pole of courage. You are literally raising the thermometer of your inner state, the spectrum of success, transmuting failure. In our culture, failure and success are seen as hell and heaven, two completely separate destinations. The principle of polarity shows us that this is also an illusion. Failure and success are not opposites. They are 2 points on the same continuum, the spectrum of experience and learning. Failure is a low degree on the scale. It is an outcome that did not align with your initial intention. The untrained mind labels it bad and sees it as proof of its own inadequacy. It is a vibration of judgment and stagnation. Success is a higher degree on the same scale. It is an outcome that did align with your intention. The transmutation of failure into success is the secret of every great entrepreneur, artist, or scientist. They understand that failure is not the end of the road. It is the road. Every failure is simply a data point, an experiment that has produced an invaluable result. It contains the wisdom of what doesn't work. The practical philosopher does not lament failure. He takes it, puts it in the crucible of his analysis, extracts the gold of the lesson, and uses that lesson to refine his next attempt. In doing so, he elevates the vibration of the experience. He has not erased the failure. He has transmuted it into a stepping stone to success. The spectrum of abundance, transmuting scarcity. Scarcity and abundance are not objective conditions of the world. They are 2 poles of the same thing, the spectrum of consciousness. Scarcity is the vibration of the mind focused on lack. It is the degree of perception that constantly scans the world looking for what is missing, what is limited, what is not had. It is a half-empty glass consciousness. Abundance is the vibration of the mind focused on wholeness. It is the degree of perception that, regardless of external circumstances, focuses on what it does have, on gratitude, on possibilities. It is a half-full glass consciousness. The universe, like a mirror, reflects your degree on the scale. If you emit scarcity, it reflects scarcity. If you emit abundance, it reflects abundance. The transmutation from scarcity to abundance is achieved through a deliberate change of mental polarity. It is achieved by withdrawing your attention from the thought, "I don't have enough," and anchoring it, with discipline, in the emotion of gratitude for what you do have, no matter how small. Every act of gratitude is an alchemical act that raises your position on the thermometer of prosperity. The spectrum of love, transmuting hatred. Even hate and love, which seem like the most absolute opposites, are, according to this law, 2 poles of the same spectrum, the spectrum of intense emotional connection. Both are forms of an immense investment of psychic energy in an object or person. The true opposite of love is not hate. It is indifference, the absence of connection, the 0 degree on the thermometer. Hate is a vibration of connection from pain, judgment and separation. Love is a vibration of connection from acceptance, compassion and unity. The transmutation of hate into love is the highest alchemical work. It begins with the difficult art of forgiveness, which is the act of withdrawing your energy from the vibration of resentment and raising it to a state of neutrality. From that neutrality, the possibility of compassion, and ultimately, impersonal love opens up. The first practice, the art of mental transmutation, the mechanism for changing your polarity, for raising the thermometer in any spectrum, is always the same. The practical philosopher does not fight the negative pole. He knows that is like fighting the cold. It only leaves you frozen. Instead, he practices the art of mental retuning. He deliberately focuses on introducing the vibration of the positive pole, the mental thermometer. When he finds himself in a state of fear, he first recognizes it with detached awareness. I'm at the cold end of the courage thermometer. Then, instead of resisting, he begins to apply heat through his imagination and feeling. He deliberately evokes the feeling of courage. He remembers a time in his life when he was brave. He adopts the physiology of courage, straight back, deep breath. He visualizes the scene of his success. In doing this, he feels a real change in his state. He feels how the mercury of his consciousness begins to rise up the thermometer. The principle of neutralization. The wise person's ultimate goal is not to live in a state of constant euphoria, at the positive extreme of every scale. That would also be an imbalance. True mastery lies in the art of neutralization. It is the ability to raise your consciousness to the pendulum's point of suspension, to the serene center of the thermometer. From this place of calm and equanimity, you can observe the fluctuations of your states without being carried away by them. And from this center you can choose, deliberately and without attachment, to move toward the pole that best serves your purpose at any given moment. The second practice, the power of polarizing language. The philosopher knows that his words define and reinforce his position on the spectrum. Therefore, he practices the polarization of his language. He becomes a guardian of his vocabulary, knowing that every word is a decree that raises or lowers his vibrational temperature. Instead of saying, I have a terrible problem, he says, I have an interesting challenge. He transmutes the vibration of the obstacle into that of opportunity. Instead of saying, I have failed, he says, I have learned a valuable lesson. Transmutes judgment into wisdom. Instead of saying, it's impossible, he says, I haven't found the way yet. He transmutes the wall of the end into a path to be discovered. Instead of saying, I hate this situation, he says, I choose to find the peace and the lesson in this situation. He transmutes resistance into acceptance. Each of these linguistic substitutions is an act of alchemy, a decree that commands his subconscious to begin raising the vibration and to look for solutions instead of focusing on the problem. The third practice, the deliberate choice of an environment. Knowing that everything has its pole, the philosopher becomes a conscious curator of his environment. He knows that his environment, the people, the places, the information he consumes, is a tuning fork that can tune him toward the pole of fear or toward the pole of confidence. The tribe. He chooses to spend his time with people who operate from the positive pole of the spectrum, people who talk about possibilities, not problems, who celebrate success, not envy, who radiate confidence, not fear. The information. He chooses an information diet that polarizes him toward growth. He reads the books, listens to the podcasts, and watches the content that inspires and empowers him. He drastically reduces his exposure to media that specializes in the pornography of fear. Chapter 5. The Oscillating Principle. The tides of being. To understand this, we must feel the heartbeat of the universe. We must learn to navigate the great currents of existence. We must decipher the fifth principle, the oscillating principle, the law of rhythm. The ancient axiom describes it with poetic precision. Everything flows, out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The swinging of the pendulum manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. This is not a simple metaphor. It is one of the most fundamental and inescapable laws of existence. The entire universe dances to the beat of an unceasing rhythm. There is a rhythm in the orbit of planets and in the expansion and contraction of galaxies. There is a rhythm in the changing of the seasons on Earth, from the heat of summer to the cold of winter. There is a rhythm in the rising and falling of the tides, governed by the moon. There is a rhythm in your own body. The inhalation and exhalation of your breath, the systole and diastole of your heart, the cycle of sleep and wakefulness, the cycle of life itself, birth, growth, maturity, decline, and death, which in turn gives way to a new birth. Everything is subject to this oscillation, to this pendular movement. Prosperity and crisis in economies, the rise and fall of civilizations, and even your own moods, energy, and creativity. There is no such thing as linear, uninterrupted growth. It is a fantasy of the human mind, a denial of the fundamental law of life. Life is not a straight line. It is a wave. To understand and accept this truth is the first step to freeing yourself from an immense amount of suffering. Because most of our anxiety and frustration are born from our two great mistakes in managing this universal rhythm. The two great errors of the unconscious mind. The untrained mind, in its ignorance of this law, makes two mistakes that condemn it to perpetual suffering. Resisting the ebb tide, the winter of the soul. When the pendulum of our life swings to the negative side, when we face a financial setback, a period of low creative energy, an illness, a dark night of the soul, our untrained mind panics. It interprets this ebb tide, this winter of the soul, as a permanent and catastrophic state. It believes the sun will never rise again, and then we start to fight. We resist rest when we are exhausted, trying to force productivity with stimulants and willpower. We punish ourselves for feeling sad or unmotivated, trying to think positive in a superficial way, and denying the truth of our experience. We fight against the reality of failure, refusing to accept the lesson and to allow the necessary period of grief and re-evaluation. This resistance does not stop the ebb tide. In fact, it makes the experience infinitely more painful. It's like trying to swim with all your might against a strong current that is pulling you toward the shore. Not only do you not move forward, but you become completely exhausted, making your stay at the low point of the cycle longer, harder, and more traumatic. Resistance to the ebb tide is suffering. It is the refusal to accept that winter is a season as necessary and sacred as summer. Clinging to the high tide, the summer of the ego. The second mistake is more subtle, but equally destructive. It occurs when the pendulum swings to the positive side. We experience great success, a surge of creativity, a wonderful new relationship, a period of happiness and expansion. We find ourselves on the crest of the wave, in the summer of our life, and the ego, in its need for permanence and its fear of loss, clings. It identifies with the peak. This is me, it says. I am successful. I am happy. And the moment it clings, fear is born. Her subtle but persistent fear that this state will end. We begin to live with the anxiety of losing what we have gained. This attachment robs us of the joy of the present moment. We stop enjoying the crest of the wave because we are obsessed with the idea that inevitably it will come back down. It also leads to exhaustion and recklessness. We try to maintain a summer level of energy and productivity indefinitely, ignoring the signals from our body and soul that are asking for an autumn of harvest and a winter of rest. We try to force the pendulum to stay still at its highest point, a violation of the universal law that can only end in a collapse. The first practice, the art of neutralization. The ancient Hermetic masters taught that, while the principle of rhythm is immutable, an individual can learn to use it for his own benefit. They taught the art of neutralization. Neutralization does not consist of stopping the pendulum. That is impossible. Life will always oscillate. Neutralization consists of an act of mental mastery. It consists of elevating your consciousness to the pendulum's point of suspension. Imagine the pendulum. It swings from side to side, but the upper point from which it hangs remains motionless. That point of stillness is your observer consciousness, your true self. The practical philosopher learns through meditation and self-observation to polarize himself at this upper point in his I am. And from there, he observes the oscillation of the pendulum of his mental, emotional, and circumstantial states without being carried away by them. He becomes the serene eye of the hurricane. He feels the force of the wind, but he is not the wind. He does not deny the sadness of the ebb tide or the euphoria of the high tide. He experiences them fully, but without identifying with them. He knows that this too shall pass. This de-identification is what gives him an unshakable peace. The second practice, The wisdom of the seasons. The practical philosopher becomes a sage of the seasons of his own life. He does not try to plant in winter or hibernate in summer. He learns to align his actions with the cycle he is in, navigating winter, the ebb tide. When the initiate finds himself in a period of ebb tide, of low energy, of contraction, of apparent stagnation, he does not fight. He withdraws. He honors the need for rest. He knows that winter is not an end, but a period of sacred gestation. It is the perfect time for introspection, for study, for integrating the lessons of the previous cycle. It is in the stillness of winter that the seeds of the next spring are gestated. His practice is that of conscious rest and silent planning, navigating spring, the beginning of the flow. When he feels that energy is starting to return, that new ideas are beginning to sprout, the philosopher acts. It is time for sowing. He launches new projects, starts new relationships, and plants with a clear intention the seeds he has gestated during the winter. Navigating summer, the high tide. When the pendulum is at its highest point, in a period of maximum energy, expansion and growth, the philosopher acts with total energy. It is time to row hard to catch the crest of the wave. He expands his business, deepens his relationships, and creates with an overflowing passion. But he does so with presence, savoring the warmth without clinging to it, knowing that autumn will come, navigating autumn, the harvest. When he feels that the peak of energy has passed, the philosopher does not panic. He begins the harvest. He gathers the fruits of his summer work. He celebrates his achievements. He gives thanks. And crucially, like the wise farmer, he stores a portion of the harvest for the winter that is coming, whether in the form of financial resources, personal energy, or lessons learned. The oscillating principle has been revealed to you. Life is no longer a straight line of progress or failure. It is a spiral, a dance. Mastery does not reside in forcing a perpetual summer, but in learning to dance to the music of each season. Chapter 6. The Inevitable Principle. The Seed and the Harvest. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but the name for a law not recognized. The dismantling of chance. Let's pause on this profound statement, because it completely annihilates one of the greatest illusions that keeps us in the role of victims, the illusion of chance. Our untrained mind sees the world as a casino. It attributes its triumphs to good luck and its misfortunes to bad luck. It believes that life is a series of random events, a cosmic game of dice over which we have no control. This belief in chance is the sleeping pill of the soul. It absolves us of all responsibility and condemns us to a life of powerlessness, passively waiting for the next roll of the dice. The Kybalion awakens us from this dream. It reveals the truth. The universe is not a casino. It is a garden, and in a garden, nothing happens by chance. The harvest you reap in autumn is the direct and inevitable effect of the seed you planted in spring. There are no exceptions. What we call luck or coincidence is simply our inability to perceive the long and often invisible chain of causes that has led to a particular effect. This is the true law of karma, stripped of all its superstitious connotations of reward and punishment. The law of cause and effect is not a system of cosmic morality. It is a law of the physics of consciousness, as impersonal and precise as the law of gravity. Gravity doesn't punish you for jumping off a cliff. It simply operates. In the same way, the law of consequence doesn't punish you for sowing a negative cause. It simply delivers the corresponding effect. The understanding of this law is the end of victimization and the beginning of sovereignty. You realize that if you don't like the harvest you are reaping in your life, you should not curse the heavens. You must, with a radical honesty, examine the seeds you have been sowing. The 3 fields of sowing to become a conscious sower of your destiny. You must understand that you sow causes in 3 great fields of existence. The field of thought, the silent seed, all creation, as we already know from the principle of mentalism, begins on the plane of thought. Every habitual and sustained thought you hold in your mind is a cause, an energetic seed you plant in the fertile soil of the quantum field. A thought pattern of worry about your health is a seed. Its inevitable harvest will be a body that manifests stress and weakness, A thought pattern of confidence in your own abilities is a seed. Its harvest will be the attraction of opportunities that allow you to demonstrate and expand those abilities. A thought pattern of judgment toward others is a seed. Its harvest will be a life in which you feel constantly judged by others. Your thoughts are not innocent. They are prophecies. They are the most potent causal seeds you possess. The field of the word, the spoken seed. If a thought is the seed, the word, both spoken and written, is the act of planting that seed, of giving it a denser vibration and a direction in the world. Every word you utter is a decree that the universe hears and registers. When you constantly talk about your problems, you are watering the seed of a problematic life. When you engage in complaint and criticism, you are sowing the seeds of frustration and negativity in your own garden. When you speak positively about others, you are sowing a cause of harmony in your relationships. Your word is your tool for sowing. You can use it to scatter poison or to plant flowers. The field of action, the embodied seed. This is the most obvious plane. We all understand that our actions have consequences, but the Hermetic philosophy teaches us to look at a deeper level. It is not just the action itself that constitutes the cause. It is the intention and emotion that imbue that action. Two people can perform the exact same external action, but if the seed of intention is different, the fruit they will reap will be radically different. Imagine two people who donate €1,000 to a charity. The external action is identical. The first person donates from a place of genuine compassion and a desire to contribute. The inner seed is love and abundance. The effect this cause will generate in their life will be an increase in their own sense of wholeness and the attraction of more opportunities to give and receive. The second person donates the same amount, but does so from a place of ego, to get social recognition or to feel superior. The inner seed is calculation and vanity. The effect this cause will generate will be superficial, perhaps a brief boost to their ego, but it will not create a true resonance with abundance. Life does not respond to the mechanics of your actions. It responds to the music of your heart. The first practice, the seed bank inventory. The philosopher does not try to plant a new garden blindly. First, he performs an inventory of the seeds he has been scattering by default. His practice is that of causal auditing. You take your journal, and for a week you become a farmer who observes his own field. You note without judgment the seeds you plant most frequently in the three fields. In the field of thought, what are my recurring thoughts about money, health, love, about myself? Are they thoughts of possibility or of limitation? In the field of the word, what is my habitual language? Is it one of complaint or of gratitude, of criticism or of appreciation? Do I talk more about my problems or my visions? In the field of action, from what energy do I act? From fear or from confidence? From obligation or from inspiration? This honest audit will show you, with an irrefutable clarity, why your current harvest is what it is. It is the first step to taking control. The second practice, the art of deliberate sowing. Once you are aware of the weeds you have been planting by habit, you begin the art of deliberate sowing. You don't try to stop thinking about the negative. That's fighting the weeds, which often only strengthens their roots. Instead, you focus on planting a new crop with so much dedication that, over time, the new strong plants will steal the sunlight and nutrients from the weeds. Choose your master seed. You select a single, powerful seed, an idea, a belief that you want to see flourish in your life. Perhaps it is the seed of perfect health or of creative abundance. Water it daily. Every day you dedicate time to nurturing this seed. You water it with your attention, visualization, with your feeling, anticipatory gratitude, and with your word, affirmations. Protect the sprout. You protect the delicate sprout of your new cause from the frost of doubt and the negativity of others. The third practice, the farmer's patience. The philosopher knows that a seed does not bear fruit overnight. He understands that there is a gestation period between sowing and harvest, governed by the law of rhythm. His practice is that of active patience. Once he has planted the seed of the cause, he trusts in the law. He does not dig up the seed every day to see if it is growing, which is what we do when we worry and doubt. He waters his seed, protects his field, and then he lets go. He trusts that the sun and rain of universal intelligence will do their work. The inevitability principle has been revealed to you. You are no longer a leaf in the wind of chance. You are the farmer of your destiny, the sower of your world. Every thought, every word, every action is a seed that you sow in the fertile soil of the cosmos. Choose your seeds wisely, because the harvest is inevitable. Chapter 7. The Generating Principle, the Spark of Origin. We arrive at the seventh and last principle, the law that animates all others, the one that explains the very mechanism of creation, the one that reveals how life perpetuates itself, from the formation of a galaxy to the birth of an idea in your mind. We must decipher the seventh principle, the generating principle, the law of gender. The ancient axiom expresses it with a total universality. Generation exists everywhere. Everything has its masculine and feminine principle. Generation is manifested on all planes. Beyond biology, the two poles of creation before we continue, it is vitally important that we free our minds from the biological and social connotations we have associated with the words masculine and feminine. This principle has nothing to do with physical sex or gender roles. It refers to two universal energetic poles, to two archetypal forces that are necessary for any act of creation to occur. All of existence on all its planes is the result of the dance and interaction of these two great principles. They are the yang and the yin of Taoism. They are force and form. They are the projectile and the target. They are the seed and the earth. To become a conscious creator, you must understand the nature of these two forces within you and learn to balance them. The masculine principle, projective will. The masculine principle is the energy of action, of projection, of direction. It is the force that gives, that initiates, that structures its qualities. It is will, intellect, focus. It is the energy of the sun, which radiates its light outward. It is the bank of the river, which gives the water a channel and a direction. It is structure, order, logic. In your mind, this principle manifests in your ability to choose a goal, to focus your attention like a laser, to create a plan, to make a decision, and to execute an action in the world. It is your conscious mind in its role as architect. The imbalance, masculine excess. A person who lives in an excess of masculine energy is all action and no feeling. He is the compulsive doer, the workaholic who lives in his head, who tries to control every variable, who forces outcomes, and who has lost touch with his intuition and his heart. His life may have material success, but it often lacks joy, flow, and deep connection. The feminine principle, receptive field. The feminine principle is the energy of receptivity, of gestation, of intuition. It is the force that receives, that nurtures, that gives birth. Its qualities, it is the subconscious, emotion, creativity. It is the energy of the moon which reflects light. It is the water of the river which flows and adapts. It is creative chaos, fertile void, pure potentiality. In your mind, this principle manifests in your ability to feel, to intuit, to imagine, to receive an idea, to allow a process to unfold in its own time. It is your subconscious mind in its role as builder. The imbalance, feminine excess. A person who lives in an excess of feminine energy is all feeling and no action. He is the passive dreamer, full of wonderful ideas and deep sensitivity, but who never brings anything to fruition. His life is a sea of potentiality that never crystallizes into a definite form for lack of the structure and direction of the masculine principle. The sacred union. The alchemical marriage, the Kybalion, teaches that all creation is the result of the sacred union of these two principles. One without the other is sterile. The masculine principle without the feminine is brute force without creativity. It is a hammer without a nail. It is a seed thrown onto concrete. The feminine principle without the masculine is potentiality without form. It is a womb without a seed. It is fertile ground that is never tilled. The true mastery, the true ability to generate your reality, resides in the art of inner alchemy. It is the sacred marriage of your conscious and subconscious minds, of your will and your intuition, of your action and your feeling. The process of conscious manifestation is a perfect dance between these two energies. Your feminine principle intuits a desire, receives an inspiration from the field of potentiality. Your masculine principle takes that inspiration and gives it a clear form. It turns it into a focused vision, a plan, a decision. Your masculine principle, the conscious mind, then plants the seed, imprinting it in the field of your feminine principle, the subconscious mind. Your feminine principle receives this seed, accepts it, and begins the gestation period in the darkness of faith and feeling. Finally, when the gestation period is over, the creation is born in the physical world. The first practice, honoring the feminine, the art of receptivity. Our modern culture suffers from an excess of masculine energy. We are taught to do, to achieve, to force. We have forgotten the art of receiving. Therefore, the philosopher's first practice is to honor and cultivate his feminine principle, the cultivation of silence. Feminine energy is nourished by stillness. The practice of meditation in this context is not a tool to focus the mind, masculine, but to quiet it and be able to listen, feminine. It is to create the empty space for inspiration to arrive. Connection with nature. The philosopher spends time in nature. He knows that the earth is the ultimate expression of the feminine principle, receptive, fertile, life-giving. By walking in a forest or sitting by the sea, he absorbs and tunes into this energy. Creative play. He allows himself periods of creativity without a goal. He draws, writes, plays an instrument, not to produce something, but for the simple joy of expression. This play opens the channel of intuition and inspiration. The second practice, directing the masculine, the art of focused action. Once inspiration has been received by the feminine principle, the philosopher must activate the masculine principle to give it form and direction. The clarity of the vision. He takes the intuitive, raw idea he has received and uses his masculine intellect to give it a clear structure. He creates a plan. He defines the steps. He sets the intention. Disciplined action. The masculine principle is that of action. Once the plan is clear, he acts. He does not procrastinate. He does not doubt. He moves with a focus and a discipline that are born from the clarity of his vision. Setting boundaries. The masculine principle is what creates structure. It is what has the strength to say no to distractions, misaligned opportunities, and people who drain his energy, thus protecting the sacred space of creative gestation. The third practice, the alchemical marriage, the ritual of creation. True mastery is found in the conscious union of these two forces. The practice is that of the creation ritual. Imagine a person who wants to start a new and meaningful project. He begins with the feminine. He doesn't force an idea. He enters a state of receptivity. He meditates, walks in nature, asks himself, "Universe, my soul, what is the next creative expression that longs to be born through me?" And he waits. The spark of an idea arrives, an inspiration. The feminine principle has received it. Now he activates the masculine. He takes that inspired idea and brings it down to earth. He uses his intellect to give it a structure. What form will this project take? What are the steps? What is the goal? He creates a clear plan. He performs the sacred union. He takes the structured plan of the masculine principle and re-immerses it in the feminine principle. He imbues it with the emotion of feeling, with faith, with gratitude. He visualizes it as an accomplished fact, planting the seed in the fertile womb of the subconscious. Finally, he lives in the dance. He takes disciplined action, masculine in the external world, but he remains open to the intuitive guidance, feminine, that will show him the shortcuts and synchronicities along the way. The generating principle has been revealed to you. You have understood that you are not a single force, but a dance of two. You are at once the artist and the canvas, the sower and the earth. By learning to honor, balance, and unite the king and queen within you, you have become a complete creator, a being capable of giving birth to any reality you choose to conceive. Chapter 8. The Language of Silence Integrating Wisdom. Our civilization suffers from horror vacui, the fear of the void. We have come to equate silence with boredom, loneliness, and nothingness, and we are so afraid of this apparent emptiness that we have built a world designed to eradicate every last bit of stillness. We fill every moment with noise. If we walk, we listen to a podcast. If we drive, we listen to the radio. If we wait in a line, we take out our phone. Silence has become an anomaly, an uncomfortable space that we rush to fill with any form of stimulus. no matter how trivial. But what are we really afraid of? Hermetic knowledge reveals that this fear of silence is, at its root, the ego's fear of its own dissolution. The ego is a creature made of thought, of noise, of narrative. It is the incessant narrator of the story of who you are. In true silence, when the flow of thought stops, the ego ceases to exist. And for it, that is death. Therefore, the untrained mind will do everything possible to keep you in the noise, to convince you that silence is unproductive, boring, or even dangerous, because it knows that in silence resides a power that threatens its tyranny. The anatomy of true silence. To reclaim this power, we must first dismantle our misconceptions. The silence we are talking about is not simply the absence of external sound. You can be in the quietest room in the world and still live in the midst of a deafening cacophony, that of compulsive inner dialogue. The true silence, the silence that is power, is inner silence. It is the stillness of the mind. It is the space between two thoughts. This silence is not a sterile void. It is the womb of creation. It is the source of mentalism. All mental creation, every thought is born from silence and returns to it. Silence is not the opposite of creation. It is its source. It is the blank canvas of the all before the mind projects its first thought. It is the medium of vibration. A musical note can only be heard thanks to the silence that surrounds it. In the same way, to be able to consciously feel and direct your own vibration, you must first become aware of the silent background of your being from which that vibration emerges. It is the space for correspondence. The mirror of correspondence can only give a clear reflection when the waters of the mind are calm. In the noise of our daily thoughts, we cannot see the subtle synchronicities and reflections that the universe sends us. Silence is the act of allowing the waters to settle so that we can, at last, see the truth of our reflection. Silence is also the source of true knowing. The rational mind, with its chatter, can only recombine the information it already knows. True wisdom, the guidance of intuition, can only be heard when the rational mind falls silent. The oracle only whispers its secrets to those who have learned to wait in stillness. And finally, silence is the state of supreme power. In any situation, the person who can remain centered, calm, and silent in the midst of chaos is the one who holds true power. Reactivity is the signature of powerlessness. Calmness is the signature of mastery. It is the serene eye of the hurricane, the point of stillness from which all the force of the storm is directed. The first practice, the art of being still. The practical philosopher does not try to silence his mind. He knows that is an act of violence that only creates more noise and more tension. His practice is much simpler and much deeper. It is the art of being still. The journey to silence does not begin in the mind. It begins in the body. You sit in a comfortable but dignified posture. You close your eyes, and your first task is not to think or not to think. It is simply to feel. You feel the weight of your body on the chair. You feel the contact of your feet with the ground. You feel the air on your skin. This anchoring in physical sensation begins to calm the first level of mental agitation. Then you use your breath as your anchor in the ocean of the now. You simply observe the natural flow of your breath without trying to change it. You feel the gentle rise and fall of your abdomen. The breath becomes the only object of your attention, the branch that your monkey mind can hold on to. The second practice, the dissolution of thought. Once a certain stillness has been established, the philosopher practices the art of de-identification. The parade of thoughts begins. Worry about the future, lamentation for the past, judgment about the present. The philosopher does not fight. He does not engage. He simply observes. He watches the thought pass like a cloud in the sky. He does not judge it as good or bad. He does not follow its story. He simply notes it. A thought of worry. And with infinite kindness he returns his attention to his breath. Every time he performs this act, noticing he has strayed and gently returning, he is doing something miraculous. He is cutting off the energy supply to the compulsive thought. A thought, deprived of the fuel of your attention, of your belief in it, cannot survive. It dissolves on its own into the silence from which it came. The third practice, finding the spaces. The mastery of silence does not reside in the absence of thoughts, but in the awareness of the spaces between the thoughts. At first, thoughts seem like a continuous torrent, but with the practice of detached observation, you begin to notice something. You begin to notice the gaps, small valleys of pure silence between one thought cloud and the next. At first, this space may last for a fraction of a second, but it is in this space that true magic resides. It is a portal. It is the direct experience of your own pure consciousness, free from the tyranny of compulsive thought. The advanced practice of the philosopher is to focus his attention no longer on the thoughts but on these spaces. He rests in them, and he discovers over time that these spaces begin to expand. The valleys of silence become wider, and the thought clouds become smaller and more distant. The language of silence has been revealed to you. It has ceased to be a terrifying void to become your sanctuary, your source of wisdom, and your greatest power. You are no longer a victim of your mind's noise. You are the silence that observes it, and in that observation you find your freedom. Chapter 9. The Art of Silent Manifestation. Integrating Action. We have been programmed with the belief that more is better. More work hours, more tasks, more control, more struggle. This mentality, which we can call forced action, is born from a deep distrust of the universe. It is the belief that if I don't make things happen, nothing will happen. It is the arrogance of the ego that believes it is the only creative force in the game. The initiate in the Hermetic Principles understands that this forced action, while it can sometimes produce results, is incredibly inefficient. It is like trying to move a boat by rowing frantically against the current of a powerful river. You can move forward, but you will become exhausted. And what's worse, this energy of struggle, tension, and control is a vibration of resistance that often sabotages and delays the very manifestation we are trying to force. The art of silent manifestation is not inaction. It is aligned action. It is the Taoist principle of wu-wei, effortless action. It is the art of acting in perfect harmony with the natural flow of the universe. It is the difference between the swimmer who fights the current and the expert sailor who unfurls his sails and uses the wind's own force to carry him to his destination. Both are moving, but one is exhausted and the other is energized. Silent manifestation is the pinnacle of effectiveness. It teaches us that the greatest achievements are not born from the greatest effort, but from the greatest alignment. The process of conscious creation, from seed to fruit, the process of manifestation, viewed through the lens of the 7 principles, is an organic cycle of creation, conception, mentalism, and feminine principle. It all begins in silence, in receptivity. You calm your mind and open yourself to receive an inspiration, an idea, a desire. This is the seed formulation, correspondence, and vibration. You take that seed and, in the workshop of your imagination, you create its mental and vibrational equivalent. You build the clear image and impregnate it with the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is the blueprint. Sowing cause and effect. Through scientific prayer or assumption, you plant this feeling-charged seed in the fertile ground of the universal mind, your subconscious. You have established the cause, gestation, rhythm, and polarity. Now you enter the period of faith and non-interference. You trust that the laws of rhythm and polarity are working in the darkness, gestating your creation. The sprout, inspired action. And here is where action comes into play. Once the seed has germinated on the invisible plane, you will begin to receive intuitive impulses, hunches, synchronicities. These are the signals that it is time to act. The master's action is not born from a rigid ego-based plan. It is born from the response to these signals. It is an inspired, timely, and effortless action. The anatomy of inspired action. How do you recognize an inspired action? It has 3 unmistakable characteristics. It feels light and joyful. Forced action feels like a should, like a burden. Inspired action feels like a want to, like a game. It fills you with energy instead of draining it. It appears spontaneously. The impulse for inspired action often arrives when you least expect it, when your logical mind is at rest. It is not the result of an analysis, but of a flash of inspiration. It creates a flow of synchronicities. When you act on an inspired impulse, the universe seems to conspire to help you. The doors open, the right people appear, the necessary resources manifest. You feel that you are being helped by an invisible force. The first practice, cultivating the receptive state. The philosopher knows that the universe whispers its instructions. It does not shout them. His first practice is not to seek action, but to cultivate receptivity. Silence as a portal. The fundamental practice is to create perception pauses throughout his day. He gives himself moments, even if only for 5 minutes of silence and non-doing. He sits by a window, walks in a park, simply stays still and breathes. He is not meditating with a goal. He is creating a void. He knows that it is in this void, in this absence of the ego's agenda, where infinite intelligence has the space to plant a new idea, to whisper the next direction to him. The beginner's mind. He approaches his day with a beginner's mind. He lets go of his preconceived notions about how things should be and opens himself to the possibility that the universe has a better, more ingenious plan. The second practice, the body compass. To know if an impulse is a true inspired action or a simple whim of the ego, the philosopher consults his most faithful oracle, his own body. The practice is that of somatic consultation. Before embarking on an important action, the initiate takes a moment. He closes his eyes. He brings the idea of the action to his mind, and then he brings his attention to his body and asks, "How does this feel?" If the idea of the action creates a sensation of expansion, of lightness, of an energy that flows forward, a yes that resonates in his heart or his gut, he knows it is an inspired action. If, on the contrary, the idea creates a sensation of contraction, of heaviness, of a dull resistance, a visceral no, he knows it is a forced action, born of the logical mind, but not aligned with the flow of his soul. The philosopher learns to honor this compass above all the arguments of reason. He knows that the body never lies. The third practice, faith in the first step. The philosopher knows that the universe rarely shows him the complete map. It shows him only the next breadcrumb on the path. His most important practice, therefore, is that of faith in the first step. Imagine the story of a man named Samuel, an artist who had decreed abundance and recognition for his work, but who felt completely stuck. One day after his meditation, he felt a clear but seemingly absurd intuitive impulse. Go to the old abandoned train station. His logical mind protested, "That's crazy. What are you going to do there? It's dangerous. It's a waste of time." The old Samuel would have obeyed logic, but the new Samuel, the philosopher in training, decided to practice faith. He obeyed the impulse. He went to the station. Nothing spectacular happened. He simply was drawn to the texture of a rusty wall and took a photo of it with his phone. A few days later, looking at the photo, he received a second impulse. Paint this. He locked himself in his studio and for the first time in months painted with a renewed passion, not a realistic image, but an abstraction inspired by the colors and textures of the rust. The painting was strange, different from anything he had ever done before. He hung it in his studio and didn't know what else to do. A week later, a friend visited him, and upon seeing the painting, she gasped. "Samuel," she said, "I know a gallery owner who is looking for exactly this style. You have to call him." Samuel, following the current of synchronicity, called the gallery owner. The gallery owner, intrigued, visited his studio, and upon seeing the painting, his eyes lit up. He not only offered him a solo exhibition, but he revealed that that particular rusty wall was part of a famous historical train, which gave the work an unexpected story and value. The exhibition was a resounding success. Samuel's manifestation did not come through a 10-step business plan. It came through a chain of inspired actions, each one seemingly small and illogical, but each one being the response to an inner guidance that he had the courage to follow. The art of silent manifestation has been revealed to you. It is the dissolution of struggle. It is the discovery that you don't have to move the universe. You just have to move with it. You have learned to stop being the rower who fights the current and to become the surfer who dances with the waves. Chapter 10. Living the Kybalion, Integrating the Self. Now we come to the culmination of our journey, to the moment of final integration, to the point where you stop studying the Kybalion and begin to live it. Welcome to the art of integrating the self, from knowledge to being. The dissolution of practice, the journey of awakening, has two main stages. The first is that of learning. It is the stage of the student, the practical philosopher. In this phase we practice observing our thoughts. We practice tuning our vibration. We practice the art of mental Transmutation. These practices are the necessary scaffolding to build the edifice of a new consciousness. They are essential, but the goal of all scaffolding is not to remain forever. It is to be removed once the building is solid. The second stage, that of mastery, is being. The person who lives the Kybalion no longer needs to practice the principles consciously and deliberately. Why? Because he has practiced them with such devotion that they have become automatic, subconscious. They have become his second nature. He no longer tries to control his thoughts. His mind, by default, resides in a state of calm and clarity. He no longer tries to raise his vibration. His heart, by habit, resides in a state of coherence and peace. He no longer tries to transmute fear into courage. His being naturally responds to challenges from a center of power. Conscious effort dissolves into a state of being. Philosophy has become physiology. Knowledge has become character. The three jewels of the integrated self. The life of a person who has embodied the 7 principles radiates 3 unmistakable qualities. The Kai, jewel of unshakable serenity. This jewel is born from the deep integration of the Principles of Mentalism, correspondence and vibration. The person who lives the Kybalion possesses a calm that does not depend on circumstances. It is not that his life is free of problems, but that his peace is no longer at their mercy. Because he understands mentalism, he knows that he is the first cause of his experience. He is not a victim. Because he understands correspondence, he knows that the external world is a mirror. He does not fight the reflection. He uses it as a diagnostic tool for his own inner work. Because he understands vibration, he knows that he has the sovereign power to change his inner state at any time. Regardless of what is happening outside, this trinity of understandings frees him from the tyranny of the external. He becomes the serene eye of the hurricane, the jewel of gracious transmutation. This jewel is born from the integration of the principles of polarity and rhythm. The person who lives the Kybalion no longer sees the world in terms of good and bad. He has transcended the duality of judgment. Because he understands polarity, he knows that failure is simply the other end of success on the same scale of learning. He does not fear it. He sees it as valuable data, as a severe but necessary teacher. He knows how to take the lead of any experience and find the gold of wisdom in it. Because he understands rhythm, he knows that life moves in cycles. He does not cling to the high tide of success or despair in the low tide of challenge. He accepts winter with the same grace as summer, knowing that both are necessary for growth. This understanding gives him immense flexibility and resilience. He is no longer a rigid oak tree that breaks in the storm, but a flexible bamboo that bends with the wind and always returns to its center. The jewel of conscious creation. Finally, this jewel is born from the integration of the principles of cause and effect and gender. The person who lives the Kybalion becomes a deliberate creator. Because he understands cause and effect, he lives in a state of deep responsibility. He knows that every thought, every word, and every action is a seed he is planting for his future. He becomes a conscious gardener of his own destiny. Because he understands the principle of gender, he becomes a master of inner alchemy. He knows how to balance his masculine energy, action, structure, will, with his feminine energy, receptivity, intuition, creativity. He not only does, but he also allows. He not only pushes the river, but he also lets himself be carried by its current. We have explored the 3 great jewels that adorn the being who lives the Hermetic Principles. But what does this life look like in practice? What are the subtle disciplines that the philosopher uses, not to train but to maintain this state of mastery? The answer is paradoxical. The master's practice is no longer a series of techniques that he does. His entire life becomes a practice. The techniques, visualization, affirmations, were the scaffolding necessary to build the building of his new consciousness. Once the building is finished and its foundations are solid, the scaffolding can be removed. The practice is no longer something he does, but something he is. The first practice, the dissolution of technique. The person who has embodied the Kybalion no longer clings to techniques. Why? Because he has practiced them with such devotion that they have become automatic, subconscious. He no longer needs to practice visualization at a specific time. His mind, by default, trained in mentalism, sees the potential and the success in every situation. He no longer needs to repeat power affirmations. His inner dialogue, by habit, has become a flow of thoughts of positive cause and elevated vibration. He no longer needs to try to feel an elevated emotion. His heart, having been trained in polarity, naturally resides in a state of coherence and peace. Conscious effort dissolves into a state of being. The second practice, the embodiment of the principles. The life of the practical philosopher is the living embodiment of the 7 principles. He lives mentalism and correspondence. He lives in a state of causal awareness. He knows that every moment is an act of mental creation. He no longer asks, "Why is this happening to me?" But, "What am I thinking and feeling for this to be the reflection?" This simple question returns him instantly to the Creator's seat. He lives vibration and polarity. He lives as an emotional alchemist. He is not a victim of his states. He is their director. He feels a low-frequency emotion, and instead of resisting it, he uses his understanding of polarity to consciously transmute it toward its opposite. Fear becomes a signal to activate courage. Frustration becomes fuel for action. He lives rhythm. He lives as a wise navigator. He does not fight against life's tides. He accepts winters for introspection and rides summers with total action. His life acquires an effortless grace because he has stopped fighting against the laws of nature and has learned to dance with them. He lives cause and effect. He lives with radical responsibility. He knows that he is the sower of his destiny. Every thought, every word, and every action is a seed he chooses with the wisdom of a farmer who knows the certainty of the harvest. He lives the principle of gender. He lives in the dance of creation. He balances focused action, masculine, with intuitive receptivity, feminine, becoming a perfect channel for manifestation. The Kybalion is no longer a text you have read. It is the blood that runs in your veins. It is the light that shines in your eyes. You have stopped being a student of wisdom. You have become wisdom itself. You have completed the initiation. You have received the Hermetic legacy. Now only one thing remains, to walk through the world not as someone who has learned a secret, but as someone who is the secret. In the conclusion, we will close the scroll, but we will open the doors of your new life. Our journey began unrolling an ancient scroll, with the promise of unveiling the hidden laws that govern reality. We started as observers of a universe that seemed chaotic, complex, and often indifferent. And along this path, we have lit a light. We have deciphered the 7 great principles. We understood that we live in the mind of the all, and that we are the thinkers of our world. We saw through the reflected principle that our life is a mirror of our being. We felt the pulsing principle, the unceasing dance of vibration. We navigated the dual principle, learning to transmute the lead of experience into the gold of wisdom. We floated on the tides of being, accepting the cycles of the universal rhythm. We assumed our power as the cause in the seed and the harvest, and we balanced the 2 great forces of creation through the generating principle. The Kybalion is no longer an ancient text you have studied. It has become the operating system of your consciousness. The laws are no longer something you apply. They are the way you perceive. The philosophy has become your way of life. You are no longer a leaf in the wind of chance. You are the practical philosopher who walks with the wind, who understands its direction and who uses its force to navigate with purpose. Your journey does not end here. The true philosophy begins now. Every day is a laboratory. Every interaction is an opportunity to observe the principles in action. Your practice is simple. Live with awareness. Observe, align, and create. The question is no longer, how does the universe work? The question is, what magnificent reality do I choose to create with this knowledge? If this hermetic knowledge has awakened the philosopher within you and has illuminated your path, we invite you to continue this exploration. Subscribe to our channel Path of Knowledge for more wisdom that expands the mind. Like this video if you commit to living in accordance with these principles. Share this audiobook with someone who is ready to stop being an effect and become a cause. Thank you for your time, for your attention, and for the brave decision to seek understanding. The scroll has been read. Now it's your turn to write your own story.